It's very clear our love is here to stay. Not for a year, but ever and a day. The radio and the telephone and the movies that we know may just be passing fancies, and in time may go. But oh my dear, our love is here to stay. Together we're going a long, long way. In time the rock is made.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight for the Wayne Public Library's continuing virtual jazz series interviews. I am very pleased and honored to be joined tonight by the wonderful vocalist and pianist Alexis Cole. So thank you and for joining me, and welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Patty.
I just want to give a quick introduction of various things I've read describing Alexis, and just to share that, and we'll jump into our full conversation. She's a award-winning jazz vocalist, a recipient of the Swing Journal Gold Disc Award, a winner of the New York Jazz Mobile and Montreux Jazz Festival vocal competitions. And she was described by Jonathan Schwartz, there we are, as one of the greatest voices of today, and compared to Sarah Vaughan and Anita O'Day, which I wholeheartedly agree, and also described as an insightful interpreter of jazz by Jazz Times on the web. I just want to read another wonderful little quote here. Among today's singers, Cole's style is refreshing. Her delivery is unforced with no frilly artifice, enabling her bandmates, and her audience to savor the rich lyrics she sings. Her infrequent scatting is tasty and always delivered in service to the material. And we always get a sense that she knows of what she sings. And I also wholeheartedly agree. So actually, I want to just start off with a quick question that might take us down a little bit of a rabbit hole. But could you refresh our memories of the difference between scatting and vocalese?
Sure. Scatting is improvised, and a vocalese is defined as lyrics put to a solo that somebody else took, that you learned and added words to, and that's usually what's referred to as a vocalese.
Are there different styles of scatting then, where you're using different intonations or different vocalizations to get your point across, or is scatting all-encompassing of various technique?
I'd say the latter is accurate, that scatting just refers to any kind of improvised, non-lyric based vocalizations.
Thank you. So I did a deep dive into all your music online, and just had a wonderful time experiencing what you bring to the table. And I immediately do hear a lot of Anita O'Day in you, which is a great thing because I'm a huge fan of hers, so now I'm a huge fan of you. So, are you an alto?
Oh yes.
But you have a strong range.
Yeah, well, I actually studied classical singing for many years, and even though my voice sort of sits naturally pretty low, I have a sufficient high range to get great colors and be able to express myself using the full instrument.
So how old were you when you knew that music was going to be the passion you wanted to pursue?
Pretty much from birth.
Wow.
So yeah, I just always was singing and entertaining. My mother tells a great story that I think is illustrative that I've shared before, but so when she picked me up she was always pulling me out of schools and into schools, even in preschool. She couldn't find one that was satisfactory. And she picked me up the first day from this one school, and she went to pick me up, and I was tap dancing and singing on a tree stump. So pretty much nothing's changed, like entertaining all the other children. So that's, I think before I was my primary passion is performing. Even more, music is just the vehicle that I use to perform.
So I guess in school you were in all of your musicals and plays and all that to get that out of your system, huh?
Well, yeah, and I actually went to a music magnet high school, and I
Oh,
thought that
wow.
I would study musical theater in high school at the New World School of the Arts High School in Miami. A wonderful school. It's produced many great jazz musicians and performers of other types. And it was only luckily in my senior year that I discovered, I mean, I say discovered jazz, but discovered jazz for myself because my grandmother actually introduced me to jazz. She was really into all the singers of the day, and she had like a rotating record player that had 20 discs on it or whatever. It was Frank Sinatra and Ella Fitzgerald and Peggy Lee and all the and Tony Bennett and all the like pop music of her generation. That also was jazz, but she liked things pretty easy listening. And when I did get into jazz, I brought her to a club, and a jazz club, and she said, "Oh, I don't know why they have to do all those variations. Wasn't the melody good enough?" She didn't like all the soloing. The variations. But I get her point. It's not, especially when people aren't very good. It was a jam session, and it can get a little tedious. So, she had a point. But she was a classic singer, and she really interpreted the lyrics so beautifully, such a spoken style. She had a very low voice. She was like a countertenor. And she sang in a lot of the original keys, like sort of male keys. But so I sort of grew up listening to jazz, but I didn't really know it. And then when I was in my senior year, somebody advertised a gig on South Beach, $50, and learn, so I applied or whatever. And he said, well, to audition, you have to learn, these 10 songs. And it was all great standards. So I learned them. And then I said, oh, this is what my voice is supposed to do. Got it. Not a musical theater person. And also I really love improvisation, and, it's just sort of, not everybody does. And not even every jazz singer has to, but I just love that you can change it up every time. And
Did you ever want to pursue any rock bands or folk or any of the other kind of music in your teen years, kind of the way other musicians I've spoken to, Bill Charlotte mentioned he was in a slight prog rock phase there for a second, and Martin and John Pizzarelli were part of their rock band. So did that ever interest you?
No. Yeah, maybe, I mean, I was in I used to play guitar and sing in like a folk song circle kind of thing. And, I'm a hippie, so that was all up my alley. And I grew up listening to Judy Collins, who of course, was greatly informed by jazz as well. And Joni Mitchell, also greatly informed by jazz. And, but yeah, those singers are really, I think they've taught me to sing. I love their pure sounds, and especially Judy Collins, pure tones. So, I did that for a little bit, but even now I love to sing folk music with other singers. There's something about harmonizing. But I don't always love singing in jazz harmony singing because it's so complicated, and it usually involves a lot of like a lot more work than I'm willing to do. So it's but I love like singing with other singers and any kind of harmony singing.
Interestingly, you do a really nice duet with Nikki Parrott on the sunny side of the street, I believe, on the CD that you did with Bucky Pizzarelli and also Warren Bechet in 2015.
Mhm.
And I loved it. It was really fantastic. Your voices just melded so beautifully. I am a frustrated wannabe singer. I can't sing. I wish I could. I have like a 6-note range if I try. And I'm always frustrated because my sisters can all sing harmony, and I can't hear harmony. I know it's there. I want to be able to sing it. So when you're singing harmony in a duo, like we did with Nikki Parrott, which do you go higher? Do you go low? Which voice are you taking? Well, that would be melody and harmony then, right?
Yeah. I mean, usually in general, if there's an opportunity to go low, I go low because my voice is low and it's easy for me. But that in that instance, that was an arrangement adapted from the Four Freshmen. I think that's whose arrangement it originally was. And so it was sort of proscribed what we were going to do. We didn't figure that out in the studio. We worked it out beforehand.
That's incredible. It's funny. I've been watching this, a lot of things about the Beatles, and there's one that Paul McCartney does with Rick Rubin, and he's talking about how basically George Martin would just say, okay, you sing this note, you sing this note, you sing this note, and put it all together. And they would go through the whole song that way, and they remembered it, and that's how they figured it out, because Paul McCartney didn't read music, and I'm not sure if the others did either. So I find that fascinating to have the acumen to be able to be like, okay, my note is this, and I now need to go this, you know, and remember it and produce it and stay in key. So.
Yeah, actually, when I was living in Georgia between my sophomore and junior years of college, I lived in a commune in Georgia, farming and studying the Bible and hanging out with hippies. And it was really great. It was a permaculture site, which was a new thing back then, but I feel like everybody knows about permaculture now, which is great. But these other two gals and I had a singing trio, the Blueberry Patch Singers, because we actually started singing together while we were harvesting blueberries. That's how we discovered. And then we all lived together, the three of us in a house. So we would practice together and then go out and sing at local churches. And it was great. People are really, you go sing at a gospel church and these people are like, you do a modulation and they're just like, people are fainting. Woo! You know, it's like, it's very exciting, you know, so they're a great audience. And we sounded great together. It was really fun. And one of the other gals, I think they're both making music. Well, I know one of them, she just has a new album out. She's a folk singer, and with her husband, she has a band. And I think the other gal became the mother of many children, but still sings. So yeah, it's good.
That's great.
Yeah, I forgot about that when you asked me earlier. But so my rock phase was a folk, you know, a cappella trio.
You have to have a great ear to be not only sing a cappella on your own, but also to sing with others. So that's a gift in its own, is that your ear. Now you read music though, and you play piano as well. How old were you when you learned piano?
Oh, I started with Suzuki piano at age 6. So that's a great method to train your ear. It relies a lot on learning pieces by ear, which I do credit that. I credit it both for my sort of bad sight reading skills and my excellent ear. So I don't know, it's kind of a mixed blessing. But in jazz, if you had to pick one in jazz, I think it's better to have a good ear than good sight reading. And good sight reading, you know, you can always work on that. Luckily, I'm the band leader most of the time, so I'm not called upon to sight read that much. So it's kind of a muscle that I don't flex that much. But you know, if I was playing in big bands and needed to be reading charts, playing, you know, saxophone or something, I'm sure my skills would be very different. But you know, you practice what you need to know.
Do you play any other instruments?
I play a little rhythm guitar, you know, for fun to accompany myself. And I played clarinet in middle school band, but I always loved it. I've thought about picking it up again.
I knew there was a woodwind in your background. I don't know why, but there always seems to be a woodwind somewhere.
Yeah.
Woodwinds are tough. I played sax in middle school as well, and yeah, my family was very glad when I quit, I might say.
Yeah. My dog used to howl along. I'd be playing the clarinet.
I'm sure your dog was appreciating you, I'm sorry, in the way that he did.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that's what it was, or he heard the call of the wild in there, but.
So you're an alumnus, I see, of a University of Miami, and also alumnus of William Patterson and Queens College?
Yeah, yeah.
So when did you attend William Patterson?
For my junior and senior years of undergrad. I transferred there from University of Miami.
Interesting. And then you got a master's degree at Queens College, or?
That's right, yeah. About 5 years later, I went back for my master's degree.
And now you come back to be an adjunct professor at William Patterson, and then also with SUNY Purchase in New York.
Yeah, so it's wonderful to have a homecoming to William Patterson, of course. And I'm in great touch with Nancy Morano, who was my teacher, who just retired, and I replaced her there. But she just retired, and her first year at William Patterson was my first year at William Patterson, 1996. And she was the new teacher there, and we got along great, and I learned so much from her. She was a wonderful, wonderful teacher. And since I started my website, which we'll talk about later, jazzvoice.com, I've had her teaching for me there. So it was nice that we were already, you know, in good touch and working together when she decided to retire, and they asked me to do it because you know, I just always want to be sure to, you know, I admire her so greatly and appreciate her. I wouldn't want her to feel that I was sort of taking over in some, I mean, time goes on. That's certainly a nice long tenure at the school there. So, and it was her choice to leave when she did. And it worked out actually pretty good for her for a number of reasons. But anyway, it was nice that we were already in good touch. Yeah.
So let's jump forward into this incredible website that you've created called jazzvoice.com, where I'm amazed by it. I spent a good almost an hour going through all of it and just amazed by the content. It basically is created like the other websites like Masterclass, where you have incredible professionals being at your the ability to sign up to be taught by professionals throughout probably the world, right? I think most of them United States at this point.
Yeah, most of them US and Canada, and a few people in Europe. So.
But what is interesting is you have set it up so wonderfully. I had to first say, the first place I looked was your book section. So I was really excited to see the Arizona books to compliment. I will always be a book person. But the different skills that each of the teachers and professionals are bringing is not limited solely to singing, although correct me if I'm wrong, jazzvoice.com is really to learn the skills of voice, but you're also about writing or composing or arranging.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, so the genesis of jazzvoice.com is that, when the pandemic broke out in spring of 2020, I was teaching then at SUNY Purchase, where I still teach and run the vocal program. Just the singers are under my care. And we had to suddenly go online, and online teaching was never something that I was interested in doing. Every once in a while, someone would ask and I would say, no, I don't really do that. And I took a voice lesson online one time and I thought it was terrible. And it just wasn't ever something that was on my radar. But suddenly we had no choice and we did it. And I discovered that it was so much better than I thought it was, that the students who succeeded in the studio still succeeded on Zoom. And the ones who were sort of, struggled on Zoom too. And everybody carried on pretty much the way they were in the studio. People learned, people grew, and there were even some inherent benefits. I'm much closer to your mouth right now than I would be if we were in the studio and you were 20 feet away and I was playing for you with my attention divided. So there were even real advantages. Also, the lessons could be video recorded easily. So I started teaching online, and then I thought, well, gosh, if I'm doing this, everybody I know who's a teacher must be already doing this as well. Wouldn't it be interesting if while everybody isn't touring, because everybody's home because all the tours got canceled, if I sort of collected all the teachers up and offered private lessons for people. So the original intent was just to be sort of a private lesson site where you could book, booking site for private lessons. But I ended up having a wonderful meeting with a local entrepreneurial incubator group called Ossining Innovates in my town, Ossining, where I was living at the time. And we started discussing other things and came up with a subscription model, which was supported by Wix, the website builder that I was deciding upon using. So I was able to pivot my original concept from just private lessons into a subscription-based service where we would provide the content. And for a low cost, it was $15 to $35 a month. And now we only have the one-tier membership for $35 a month. But for just that small amount, you could access different types of classes on the site every month and recordings of those classes. So, I luckily, for the last 25 years, I've been meeting people and networking, and I just know a lot of people, both people who would want to be members and people who would want to be teachers and sort of everybody in between. And jazzvoice.com was really created with a focus towards amateur art making and sort of semi-pro and pre-professional, skill building. So we have a section too on career development, which is, I was actually the vice president of the New York chapter of the Vocal Jazz Coalition. I think that's what it was called. It's the name. We had different chapters. It was based out of California. We had a New York chapter, and I led a professional development series here in New York, how to make a CD and how to market yourself and stuff. I wasn't teaching them, I just hosted these things. So basically, this was an opportunity for me to take that kind of hosting virtually and give emerging professionals and also amateurs the skills that they would need to continue their passion. I'm a big fan of amateur art making. I really think, even though I'm a professional musician, I think that idea is sort of ludicrous, that all people should be making art. They should be farming. They should be, industrious in many areas. And the idea that we would relegate art making to some elite few instead of all engaging in it ourselves is a very modern and unhealthy idea, in my opinion. That we should all be doing that. So I think amateur, the word, it's sort of been bastardized or kapooed, but it means for the love of. And how great is it to do things for the love of, not for the money or for the fame or the fortune, but for the love of. And that's what art is, an expression of who we are. And to say, oh, I'm not, I can't do that. I'm not a professional artist it's not good. And especially when it comes to singing, it's one of those great things that you actually, yes, it would be great if everybody had a degree in singing, but it's not practical and it's not even a great idea. So like everybody has the ability to open their mouth and sing or try to sing. And I think that people should be encouraged to do that. So jazzvoice.com, it's a judgment-free zone. And we encourage everybody to come as they are and learn more about their craft and the thing that they love, jazz singing.
I think our society has changed so much in the last few years, or even, well, not even few, I'm going to go back 10, 15, even 20 years. It's very different than when I was, say, in high school, where I was allowed to explore and be in band and do the paper, whatever it was that I was interested in. And now when I see the students coming into the library, they're so focused and driven that they have to be in as many different sports and extracurricular activities, all for that college transcript. And I can't help but wonder, is anybody getting enjoyment out of it, or do they even have the time to get enjoyment out of it with their schedules, with their homework and all this? Like it just seems like such a different attitude than when I was younger, and it makes me kind of sad. So along to what you were saying, are we losing the joy of all these extracurricular activities? And also as adults too, because we have to work, we have to pay our rent and all that kind of stuff. But I think we don't make enough time for it the way we did. I mean, growing up, we were encouraged to do macrame or sand art or string art. I mean, I'm really dating myself here, but painting plaster figurines, like it was just always crafts. There were so many crafts and Girl Scouts and whatever outlets we had. It was fantastic, and I don't know that we necessarily have that pride to place it in our lives anymore for that kind of outlet.
That's really
so. One of the things I did like about your site too is that you offer individual lessons, but you have group lessons. You have the recordings. You have also. I was really impressed with the professional development, like you were saying, is teaching singers the ability of being able to not necessarily rely on others, but to be able to craft their career and not have to, like, I'm sure you would have to hire a manager at a certain level, but I like this idea very much. And it's something I actually had a chance to talk with Amy London a little bit too, and what she's doing. And I think it's even Martin Miserelli had said, when I asked him what you would tell young musicians, it was basically be early, like these are some of the things that you learn through others and hopefully can apply so that you can make your career grow and blossom in that way. So,
I just want to highlight one thing you said is that all the recordings, all the sessions we've ever had on jazzvoice.com have been recorded, and they're available in our recordings section there. And that's free for any member. Anybody who pays $35 for a month has access to the full library of recordings, and there's just such a treasure trove there. So
it's an incredible bargain. I really, honestly, if anyone who, just for interest, it's worth it. I encourage everybody to pursue that.
Yeah, I'm a hippie, and I wanted to set the bar the bar to access low, so that not everybody has $35 to throw around. I get that. I'm not trying to say but actually now that I moved to Manhattan, yes, it does seem like a very small amount of money. Everything's so expensive. But yeah, I wanted to make it so that it was a reasonable price, so that people could access this information, because not everybody, like I said, for a lot of people, it's a passion or a hobby, and it just shouldn't, if enough people pay the $35, then it doesn't have to cost $200. So far we've been very blessed. We have, hundreds of members, and I've been able to hire whoever I wanted to hire to do workshops for us. And also people are very, the singers and other teachers who teach for us charge reasonable fees too, and I'm able to pay them. It used to be I had kind of a tiered fee depending on what type of class it was, but I was able to raise that at a certain point to a minimum, which I felt like was, I'd still like to raise that minimum, and I will as we grow. But at least I feel like I'm able to offer everybody a good wage for doing that. And actually, during the heart of the pandemic, when people lost work, I felt very proud to be, generating work and offering people fees for doing online work. So it was really a great point of pride for me, is that during 2021, we paid out $80,000 to teachers in that year. So I'm really
That's
proud
wonderful.
of that. Yeah, thank you.
The pandemic, in many ways, it seems to have been a boon to different professions, and a big help in some ways for musicians and many of us who had to recreate. We are doing this by Zoom. This is a program that started during the pandemic, and it had never occurred to me to do anything like this prior. But now it's second nature. And so many different musicians have taken to doing weekly live streams, like John Pizzarelli does one. And there's a guitarist that I enjoy from Australia, who's now a U.S. citizen, named Joe Robinson. And he's been doing weekly live streams. And it is just a wonderful way to stay connected when we couldn't, and see them live. But also, I think it's going to, personally, for me, it's a really nice way for me to support different musicians. If they're performing in California, but I can do it virtually, great. Now I'll pay for my ticket. I'll have that access. I was able to see the tribute to Chick Corea in New York City. I would never have been able to go into New York City when they had that, but I was able to participate. It was wonderful. So I think the pandemic has been able to open doors for viewers to support and enjoy, kind of also like with Patreon, in supporting different outlets of artistry and creativity. So
yeah. Well, so a lot of people said during the height of the pandemic, when so many people were sequestered, a lot of people said that jazzvoice.com was a place for them that kept them sane and kept them feeling connected to each other. And a lot of friendships were forged. And it's really, almost every day I would get an email from somebody thanking me for starting the site, and thanking me and thanking me for connecting them to all these people that they never would have met. And even now, there are real life friendships out there, and professional relationships as well, that were started on jazzvoice.com. So it's so great when every once in a while somebody will email me to let me know, oh, I met so-and-so through your site and we're working together now, or, I took a lesson with them, or I went to see their show and got to meet them, or, we went together a lot of times our members in New York City will go together to hear other singers live. And it's just like overwhelming to be the catalyst for that kind of community making. I'm really grateful.
The amount of talent you have on that site is unbelievable to me. Do you want to name drop a few of the?
Sure, we will. Let's name drop. So we got Catherine Russell and Jane Monheit, Cyril LeMay, Tierney Sutton, John Prue, Cynthia Scott, Dee Daniels. These are just a few of the people.
It's incredible. Yeah, the list goes on. It's the amount of talent in that one place is just fantastic.
And those are just our private teachers, but gosh, so many other people have even done a one-off masterclass too. So yeah,
that's really wonderful.
Thank you.
So I've read it in that perhaps what helped you develop jazzvoice.com was when you were preparing for the Virginia Beach Vocal Summit. Was it the other way around?
No, nope. Yeah, because the Virginia Beach Vocal Jazz Summit was actually conceived about 2 years before the pandemic. And my friend Bart Keebler from the Army, we hadn't talked about that yet, but I served in the Army for about 7 years as the big band singer for the West Point Band. So this one of my assignments during that time was to go down and train the first class of singers who were going to be professional singers for the Army. They were going to audition. So I met Bart at that time, and then he, in the meanwhile, retired and built a theater. He was the artistic director of a theater and actually constructed the theater from nothing, planned everything, and it's just spectacular theater. And interestingly, the theater is bankrolled by one fabulous philanthropist, Mike Zeiter, and he's a singer-songwriter, aside from being a very successful businessman. So he sponsored this theater, and part of their mission is this, the promotion of amateur art making. So they really try to involve their local community. They do this great Shakespeare festival where all local people do the parts. They don't know who's going to do what part. They find out like the day before or something, and then they do like staged readings, I think, of the parts. It might be a little different from that, but like these things that really involve the community in a very deep way. So he came up with the idea for the Vocal Jazz Summit and enlisted me as the artistic director. And I actually went down there in 2018. I was part of the Big Band Bang or something run by Blues Alley in DC. And after that, I went down a little further to meet with him in person to discuss this. And then the first year we did it was 2021, and we did it virtually.
Earlier this year in April, right?
No, the first year we did a virtual summit. In 2021, we had an all virtual summit. It was great. Catherine Russell performed for us here in New York and zoomed it in. And we had just a really great, Renee Marie also performed, and we had workshops. I was actually in Hawaii at the time, so I gave my workshop from Hawaii, and it was just really amazing and cool. And then the next year in 2022, just this past April, we did meet in person. So basically, yes, so jazzvoice.com and the Vocal Jazz Summit are really sort of share an aesthetic, all this things I've been talking about the joy of making music, amateur art making, and sort of bringing together people at the highest levels of the art and at any other level lower than that, all together to hang and encourage. And so we were all together there in Virginia Beach this year. Kurt Elling was our headliner, and my student Samara Joy, who just graduated, she closed us up. And I did a performance Saturday night, which actually had been postponed from March of the pandemic. I was one of the first people canceled, unfortunately. So so I got to perform too. And then we had workshops all day, and it was just, it was amazing. Dominique Eve was there, and Melanie Charles, and who else was there? I already mentioned Renee Marie. Oh, Stephanie Nicassian there as well. And yeah, it was a really great summit this year.
Did you mention Renee Marie?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a wonderful article that describes the event as a hybrid of festival, conference, and workshop with performances, masterclasses, panels, and jam sessions, all targeted at vocalists as well as vocal jazz fans. So it really, as you're saying, it merges very well with jazzvoice.com in an in-person kind of festival setting too, but hitting all those same kind of masterclass and teaching and such. It sounds incredible.
It was incredible. I would like to add party to that mix. I think that merging this, that, and the party, it was a great time, and we want to have more social events. And actually, we moved it to June this year because Virginia Beach is a great beach town, and we wanted to make it so that people could combine the festival with a beach vacation. So yeah, jazzvoice.com is hopefully going to be sponsoring like a barbecue on the beach the night before the conference, and it's going to be really fun. But yeah, they're all of the same, aesthetic mind. And it's interesting, when Bart asked me years ago about being the artistic director of the Vocal Jazz Summit, I don't know, Patty, if you interview a lot of women, I don't know how most women feel, but I think a lot of women feel like, oh, I could never do that. I'm not up to that. And whereas another woman professional I know she said, oh, men just brush up against a thing and they're an expert, So I know women, we have to maybe stereotypically feel sort of underqualified. But interestingly, in the time between when he asked me and when we actually executed the summit, I became the person who could be the artistic director by starting jazzvoice.com. I mean, 90% of our participants at the Vocal Jazz Summit in person were jazzvoice.com members and found out about it through jazzvoice.com. And it really was, I booked all the artists, and it really was an extension of jazzvoice.com. So Bart initiated this thing, and I worked on myself and my endeavors, and then it all, I became the person that they needed me to be. How about that? Something like that.
Isn't it true? Don't they say that when you pursue your passions and you let go of your own expectations of what you need to be, that's when things fall into place and you become what is needed or even wanted. And I find that you're absolutely right. I agree with you as far as women don't necessarily have that automatic, sure, I could do that. And I don't know why that is. I find it in myself, and I think that we kind of almost have to talk ourselves into it before we can present it to others. Yeah. Do you have that experience too?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, that's been one of the wonderful things about jazzvoice.com is just empowering singers, teaching them the things that they need to know to be competent on the bandstand and to come across, and also honestly just offering fellowship when somebody says, oh, this happened to me on the bandstand, and I could say, yeah, that wasn't right. That person shouldn't have said, they shouldn't have done that to you. That was wrong. And you don't have to hire that person again. I don't care. Like, who cares if they're great? It's not, if they're not going to be nice to you, like, no, you didn't, if you've described the situation, to me, you didn't do anything wrong, or gosh, like, for instance, like, whatever, I have a master's of music. My musicianship skills are not, perfect, but I'm, play the piano. I'm like a real musician, right? And sometimes people will be, talk down to me or be rude to me about a musical thing, and I just, like, gosh, like, how much worse is it for the singers that are on my site who don't have those skills, who can't say, like, you know what, I know I was right and that person was wrong and I don't need to hire them again. Or so it's just, sometimes there's an animosity there, and you just can't hire the instrumentalists that don't want to work with singers, because some of them don't, and it's okay. Like, they don't have to. Don't take my gig, but for some reason people do, and then they get a chip on their shoulder, or somebody says something to them, it makes them feel like they're not being revered, or I don't know what. But all I'm saying is I've had some of these problems my whole life. So if I have these problems and I'm a good musician, like, how much worse is it for some of our members that aren't good musicians, but they're not out there trying to say, like, I'm amazing, look at me sing. They're like, hey, I'm a person who's trying to sing and express myself. Could we work together here? Nobody's trying to. And also, singers, of course, over the years have been very guilty of being pushy or jerks. A lot of it, I'm sure, is because of insecurity of the things that they don't know. So I think also, like, educating our singers, which we do on the site often, we have workshops about band leading and stuff, and talking about, like, what's okay, what's not okay, how to talk to a band. I always emphasize, building other people up is the best way to make people like you, making people look good. For instance, not putting things in the key of B, or, like putting things in good keys so that people sound good, so that they can sound good accompanying you. It makes them feel good about themselves, which makes them like you, which you wouldn't think that would be the way that things would go, but, everybody just wants to feel good about themselves. So
making it collaborative as best as you can in that setting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, you have the skill of musicianship with playing piano and clarinet and guitar.
Let's just say piano. The other things I dabble. Yeah. I know how to, I have touched them. That's it, about it.
You made the comment about, I'm a real musician. You're not a real musician because you play piano. You're a real musician because you're an incredible singer. And I think, I don't know if it's society or just the music industry, maybe singers are not looked at differently. And in my conversation with Bill Charlap, where you were talking about Tony Bennett, because he did that wonderful Silver Lining CD, and he said a lot of people don't realize what a great musician Tony Bennett was, and he gave examples of how he would phrase something or how he would improvise something within the context of the song. And it just is something I don't think a lot of people realize. That singers are incredible musicians. Their instrument is their voice, and that's what they're sharing, as opposed to a bass, a piano, drums, whatnot. And it's an equal, to me, it's an equal playing field, but from what you're describing, it sounds like we're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
We'll get there. Now,
Yeah.
we've been able to talk in this series about women in jazz, and um, do you think that a lot of women who are entering the jazz field are mostly singers, and also musicians? Do you see a percentage in breaking through to the previously male-dominated jazz arena?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the majority of women coming into jazz are still singers, and I think for that to change, probably middle school band, elementary school. I mean, these are the places where students need to stop. Teachers need to not discriminate, and give Jane a trumpet and give Johnny make Johnny sing, and or give him a flute. Like until that's becomes even at those low levels of education or early levels of education, I don't think that things can change. But I will say, so amazing is, I don't know if you follow the Jazz Education Network, but I go to their conference annually. They're sort of, years ago it was the IAJE, International Association of Jazz Education, and now these last almost 10 years, I think, it's been the GEN conference. It's the annual conference, and my friend Ashley Schmonkere is on the board now. She's been the vice president for the last few years. And I feel like the last few years, if you just dropped down out of Mars and went to the Gen conference, you would think that there was no gender bias in jazz, because they have been super intentional in their their graphics and in their programming. They are really highlighting, they're really seeking gender equity in their programming. And also, that they have like these illustrated, images that go throughout the conference on brochures and posters and things. And it's always, young women playing the bass and playing saxophone and stuff. And they've had great women on the on the program for the last few years.
It's wonderful to hear. And I also had the pleasure of interviewing Melissa Walker, who founded Jazz House Kids, which seems to not be very, very equitable, but and also the promotion of their Chica Power program there too. It's an incredible thing that they're doing, and it makes me wish it had been in existence when I was growing up, and maybe I would have been a better musician, or maybe not. But but it's nice to see that the younger generations are have maybe a better chance of not dealing with the things that are hopefully going to become passé that you're expressing there. So
yeah. And I think I think people are just I think at least institutions are becoming aware of how they can play a part and be helpful. So that's
thankfully.
Yeah, I know at SUNY Purchase and William Patterson, we're really looking at that and how we can recruit more women instrumentalists and more male vocalists, and trying to just make sure that, as the faculty, we're doing everything that we can to be welcoming and encouraging.
That's good to know. So let's talk about your earlier time when you were part of the U.S. Army and the West Point jazz band that you had mentioned earlier. How did you go that route to then get into music professionally?
Sure. Well, I had already been, it was, 2009 when I joined the band. I was 33 already, and I had, self-released 3 albums and was performing around a lot. And I had got my master's degree in 2006, and I had taught down in Ecuador at a Berklee School of Music. So I already had quite a bit of experience. And then actually I was performing in Japan at that time. I was playing piano and singing in a lounge there, 3 months on, 4 or 5 months off, 3 months on. I did that contract 4 times. So I lived in Japan for a year and a half. And it was right before I left for my last contract in Japan that Nancy Morano, my teacher from William Patterson, called me up and she said, they're auditioning for a new singer with the Jazz Nights. I think you should audition. I said, oh, I would love to, but I'm leaving for Japan in a couple of weeks. And she said, well, look into it. And she said, I could only think of a few people that I thought could endure basic training and meet the fitness requirement, which I was very honored. I was not very fit at that time, but anyway, so I looked into it and, I thought, it turned out, it was crazy. I already had my ticket for Japan, and it turned out that the live audition was scheduled for the week that I was scheduled to return from Japan. So I thought, oh, maybe that's a little fate there. And I decided I'd just put in an application and see how I felt. If I got the job, I would decide how my heart felt, that I didn't need to take the job, but just why not audition for it? It's free. And so I put in a packet and I did get called for the live audition. And I have a twist on, that old saying, they say anything worth having is worth working for. And I've changed it around to be everything worth working for is worth having, because I did so much work for that damn audition that when I found out I got the job, of course I took it because I had done so much work for the audition. So I really didn't give it a second thought, which is a great way to be. I'm very, led by the moment and in the moment with my life, and just try to sort of take I have a philosophy about going through open doors. And that was a door that was standing wide open. So I went through, and the next thing you know, I'm in basic training, and that was really terrible. But I made it through, and then I was singing with the West Point Band. So it was kind of amazing. And I sang with them for 6.5 years. I got to sing for all kinds of occasions, retirements. I sang for Norman Schwarzkopf's funeral. So many amazing people that you've heard of were there, and his widow even called me to thank me for the profundity of my song. And I got to sing for the cadets, who will be 36% of our Army's leaders, generals, come from West Point. So those were the future leaders of our country. And it was a really wonderful and profound experience, getting to sing in all those different and really great professional experience to be not the band leader, but just a side person. And actually, a few years before I got that job, Don Braden, I was doing a gig with him, and he said, Alexis, what's your growing edge is you need to get a sideman gig, and be with some other band. And so I did it. But it was great. And actually, the year that I had decided to transition out of the band is when I got called by Pete Malinverni, the pianist who was the jazz director at SUNY Purchase. So I transitioned seamlessly from my job in the Army into higher education. It was really great.
I just met Don Braden. He was performing in Ramsey with the public library there with the group Big Funk with Carl Latham, who's on drums there, and Carl performed here twice this summer with Lawrence Hobgood and James Robbins, and then with Martin Pizzarelli. So It's all full circle here, it sounds like.
Cool.
Now, people may not realize that the branches of the service have many different iterations of bands, military bands, jazz bands, and such. My uncle was actually in the Navy Commodores, the Jazz Commodores, for 20 plus years. And
I performed as a guest with them a few years ago.
Hey, he was probably retired by then. But yeah, they're an incredible band. And so each branch has their absolute fantastic versions of jazz bands, and as well as the other bands that they have for like the Memorial Day parade Memorial Day and 4th of July service programs. I cry every single time I watch those on TV. So I get very choked up and very patriotic and very it moves me. So. Yeah,
me too. I'm from a family of immigrants, and patriotism is a very important part of my sort of philosophy of life. And this country stands for so much. It's not like any other country on earth. We're a country of immigrants, and I think it's and a country of people with differences. And I think that's one of the great things about being in the military, it doesn't matter your politics, but everybody works together to get the job done. And you're there working with people that could have very different opinions from you. It's one of the few spaces, maybe in America, where people of different ideologies come together easily to work together. Really
this is a nice segue to talk about one of your CDs that you have called Sky Blossom, which is songs from my tour of duty. And on the last track on there is American Anthem, which is just absolutely beautiful and incredible.
Thank you. And that's actually the last song that I sang with the West Point Band. It was this incredible 4th of July concert in 2016. And randomly, we did not know they were coming, but the Mormon Tabernacle Choir and Orchestra came and did like a flash mob kind of like I guess they thought that if they told the public that they were coming, there would be too many people, because we already usually get 10,000 people on the lawn for that event. So there's a great video of it, of me singing. Oh, and they recorded it too with a one of those arm cameras, like those, and also a drone camera. So there's my last performance. There's a wonderful video of it. And the incredible thing about that recording, Patty, I don't know if you know this, but I was in Korea when I decided to add that song as a final song to the album. And Korea has a very, very recent and visceral, democracy movement. Just in 1980, they had student revolutions, and maybe 1,000 people were murdered, in the fight for democracy. But they made a difference, and that country became the democracy that we know today during that amazing revolution. And so this young man I was playing with, I told him this story about how inspiring it was for me to visit Gwangju, which is the seat of that revolution, and see the sites. And I went to the cemetery, and to know how modern young people fought for democracy, which is something that in America we often take for granted. We cannot. And the idea of self-rule and actual elections, and like it's a really modern idea, and it's very, very precious. It's amazing. So that song, and also that song talks about the lyrics talk about how everybody has something to contribute. You might not think you do, but you'll find it in yourself, what you have to contribute to the greatness of our democracy. And the reason I decided to include it was that President Biden quoted it in his inaugural address. He quoted this song, which is it's a beautiful lyric. It was written in the 80s. So it's a pretty recent song, but really great. So once he did that, I thought, let me include this, which was actually meaningfully to me the last song I sang with the band as well. So even though it was we didn't have a big band arrangement of it, it was just a duo, I thought that it would make a nice end cap for the album, which is all the arrangements that were written for me by Scott Archangel, who was our music director of the West Point Band. He wrote all those arrangements for me to sing, and I toured with those arrangements with the band for years. So and they were written for me, for my musical sensibility. So I was just so glad to be able to make this album and make sure that those arrangements didn't die on the vine once I was no longer in the band, but were able to live on.
The song choice is just fantastic on there, and I was absolutely tickled pink that you played one of my favorite songs that I always wonder that more jazz musicians don't sing, which is Pure Imagination. I love that song. I'm a huge Anthony Newley fan. Who Can I Turn To is another song that he also wrote that I think is such a great jazz ballad. And those two, I always wish more singers would sing them. And I was thrilled to see you have it on this Sky Blossom.
It's my favorite track on the album as well, actually.
I mean, as everyone knows who's seen these, I'm a huge Monty Alexander fan, and he also does a great version of Pure Imagination.
Yeah. A lot of jazz musicians have adopted that song in over the last 15 years, whatever.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. And I had read that your Sky Blossom is another term for an opening parachute.
Yes. When the ground forces would see the paratroopers coming, they would call it the Sky Blossom. And it's when that support is coming, that backup is there. You're not alone.
One of the other songs, well, first let me jump first to when you got out of the service, and that was 2015. That was the year that you were able to do the recording with Bucky Pizzarelli, A Beautiful Friendship, which was his last recording. And you also recorded, or part of the recording, Harold Mayburn. It wasn't his last, but it's called Afro Blue, and we actually have it at the Wayne Public Library collections to be checked out. The song that I have the CD, let's see if you can see it. Yeah,
Yes,
you can kind
of
of see it there.
Yeah.
And the song that you sang is, and I can't read it because
Such
it's
is Life.
dark.
Such
Sorry?
is Life. It's an original of Harold's called Such is Life.
Thank you.
It's really funny too. I was actually working, I think I got out of the Army in 2016. But I was actually working at the duty desk. Everybody has to take a rotation being the receptionist at the duty desk, essentially, once every 2 months or something. And I was at the duty desk and I called Harold back, or he called me, and he was actually telling me like to learn the chart. He told me the lyrics, and then he told me the chords, and then he sang the song to me, and I recorded it. He played it and sang it, and I wrote a chart out for it so that I could, learn it. And I actually brought it with me to the recording session, and we ended up using it, which was very satisfying that I was able to do that. But I'll just never forget sitting there in my fatigues at the duty desk, which is such a sort of dismal place. And, Harold saying, yeah, it's F minor 7, and telling me like just note by note, word by word, transcribing the song over the phone at the duty desk. It was so surreal. Yeah, really great memory.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's a really, it's sort of a dark song. So that's in the Harold's such an upbeat, positive person. It was really interesting to get a deeper look into, his psyche. What's life without misery? Like, I'll never know, essentially.
One of the songs I was very happy to see you also record that I was able to catch on YouTube is Jitterbug Waltz, which is absolutely one of my favorite songs. Vince Guaraldi does a great version of it. Everybody's done a great version of it. I never realized that there were lyrics added to it. And I made it, and so I had to find out. A little fun fact here is that Jitterbug Waltz is written by Fats Waller in 1940, and it was when in 1978 lyrics were added by director Richard Maltby Jr. for when Ain't Misbehavin' was on Broadway. So I never realized that there were lyrics, and I love your version of it. It's a nice trio setting that you're doing in the clip that I saw, and it's a beautiful song. He actually wrote it because it reminded him of the scales and the kind of practice that his son had to do when he was playing piano by his teacher.
Oh, neat.
But it's not an easy song to sing at all, so I'm really impressed.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's sort of one of my signature songs. I've played a lot as a duo with David Fink on bass. But I actually credit that. A lot of people have sung it, but my favorite person who sang it was the singer Marguerite Juneman. She's out of Colorado, and I saw her when she was here in New York and fell in love with her. And she teaches for us on jazzvoice.com now. We're in touch. And so she recorded that song she has an album, a duo album, which is all Fats Waller songs. And I think the Ain't Misbehavin' is the title track. But anyway, Marguerite only has 2 albums. So it's a duo album with Art Landy on piano. And actually, it's called Night Wind. That's it. And really super satisfying, Patty, was that I'm a huge fan of hers. Huge fan. Like, that's one of the best concerts. I saw her at Cornelia Street, and I'm like, I've never been the same since. And she, for whatever reason, didn't have a digital presence for her music. And through jazzvoice.com, and getting to know her better, she actually gave me permission to post her CDs online. So now if you want to hear Marguerite Juneman's work, you can go to Spotify I released them through CD Baby and for her on her behalf. And it's very satisfying now that I can share my love of Marguerite with the world now that her music is online. So I have to say, like, it's, as a fangirl, like, wow, there could be no greater satisfaction than getting to have made that happen. So yeah, and she's a wonderful, wonderful person and just an amazing, amazing singer. So yeah.
I wanted to ask you, you have trained in Indian classical singing at the Jazz India Vocal Institute in Mumbai. How does that style, does it affect other areas of your singing? Is it about breathing or breath work, or somatic breathing, or is it, you tell me about it, please.
Sure. That's, that Indian classical music is like 90% improvisation. A lot of it is sort of plug and play, like sort of lick inspired. They learn these licks and plug them in different places. But the level of virtuosity is just stunning. So my, I learned, I didn't go to India to study classical music because I was like, oh, I'm really into Indian classical music. It's cool. I went because it was Jamie Aebersold recommended me for this job. This guy, Niranjan Jhaveri, he wrote a book about Indian classical singing for jazz singers. And he actually came to my college when I was a freshman at University of Miami. And he came here and he goes, we had a forum with him with all the jazz singers. He goes, something like, nobody has done anything interesting with jazz vocals since Bobby McFerrin. Nothing has changed in jazz vocals. You must come and study Indian classical singing so you can make something change. Make something interesting, please. He just thought singing the standards was completely boring. And the only innovator in jazz vocals was Bobby McFerrin. So anyway, it was kind of funny. He's a retired diamonds dealer who just had a passion for jazz. So he made these books for Western classical singers and then made this institute, which was really just bringing singers over one at a time to study with a teacher every day and sing at the Oberoi Hotel at night and get free room and board and then study with the teacher during the day. So it was pretty cool. I was like, oh, I'm never gonna be able to learn this. My teacher's like, oh, it's so easy. She was really cool. She wasn't mystical, Indian singer, she was like, oh, she was an atheist. She's one of the 5 atheists in India, and she's like, no, it's so easy. I'm like, what is it? Tell me about microtonal singing. I want to understand. She's like, you just sing a little sharp, you sing a little flat. You'll get it. She's so cool. So yeah, her name's Dhanashri Pandit Rai. She's still singing in India. And so I studied with her 4 days a week for 2 months, and I learned to, sound kind of like an Indian singer. It was really cool. And, there's such a depth to the music. I'm not going to even say that I approached that, but it was really cool to learn. The main thing I wanted to learn was the vocalizations, how to move in the style. So
can you apply it to your jazz singing and other areas?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have done some very explicitly crossover fusion stuff, on my Christmas album called The Greatest Gift. I did one track, Star in the East, also called Rise Up Shepherd and Follow. And that one is with the tempura droning, and I had tabla on it. And then I did an alap, which is your slow improvisation at the beginning, followed by a tons, which is your fast improvisation. And then I sing the head. And then there's, I had my friend from University of Miami long ago, Gottfried Stoger, played soprano sax, and then we come in again, and there's a break, and it slows down. And it's sort of, it's an explicitly Indian fusion track. So there's that way. I also use it in an arrangement of Speak Low, maybe, that was written for me to sing with the West Point Band. It ended with an Indian improvisation section in an odd meter, and I was playing finger cymbals, which is not Indian, but anyway, it was very cool. I got to do some Indian improvisation there. And there's a way that I vocalize sometimes, which you can hear actually on the end of Joy Spring. It goes into 5/4 at the end, and it's sort of like a huskier style that is definitely informed by the Indian improvisation, not by the Western Louis Armstrong scat singing kind of improvisation. So yeah,
on jazzvoice.com, one of your teachers actually teaches somatic breathing as part of her classes. And of course, I did not recall which of your teachers it is, but I find that fascinating that, of course, that kind of breathing, which I believe has Indian background, would help a singer in technique. I'll have to let you know which teacher that is on your site. So I wanted to also mention your CD, your Christmas CD. I believe that's the one where you have Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas is on that.
Yeah.
And it's such a great version. I love it because, don't get me wrong, I love Judy Garland. I'm a huge Judy Garland fan. And I know her version is considered classic. It makes me sad though every time I listen to her version. It's so plaintive and so, um, it's just full of great emotion and such. But I love your version because it's a more upbeat. It has wonderful changes throughout that just make it a lot more a lighter version of it,
Well,
and
thanks.
that I like a lot.
I
It
wrote
didn't
that
make me
arrangement.
cry.
Thank you. Oh, great.
That's a litmus test. It didn't make me cry.
Usually I make people cry, so that's unusual.
Well, no, good in a good way, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
I just wanted to ask you too with the jazz the vocal jazz summit that you had. This article was absolutely fascinating about it, and they were talking to I believe it was Renee Marie at this time, or is it Renee Marie?
Yeah, Renee.
There's a space between the singer and the audience. So how do you bridge the space between the singer and the audience? So this is something that came up in one of the conferences. And I'm just curious what your answer is to that as a singer. How do you connect and make that fill that gap?
As a performance technique, I look beyond the heads of the people that are there, and then I sort of look into the distance and connect to a more something deeper within myself and within humanity, and that's sort of a substitute. I mean, I don't necessarily want to like look at every person in the eye, and luckily most of the time you can't. So, because it's too confronting. I mean, you want to be private, but if I can connect with sort of divinity and humanity mixing in a liminal space, and then that's automatically like maybe makes me vulnerable and able to connect with the audience in a way that that's maybe that's sort of a secondhand thing. By opening up myself to emotions, people are able to connect with me. Maybe that's a way.
As an audience member, and I just find that that's what I can bring to the table, right? I'm a jazz lover. I love listening to music, and I can connect as an audience member. There are certain performances you go to where you're dialed in. You're picking up that tacit communication that's happening between the band members. You're feeling it. You're all plugged in at the same time. And then I've gone to ones where you're not, and I can't put my finger on it. Why am I connecting this one time, and why in other times I am? So I just always found that a really interesting question. That what's the alchemy? Is it alchemy? Does it just come down to alchemy and chemistry, like, and some sort of magic that happens when you have that interconnection between the audience and the performers? It really is an amazing thing, and I think sometimes we may take it for granted. And when it happens, it's just out of this world.
Yeah, it is definitely the best feeling.
So you are obviously an extremely good teacher. You had mentioned your student Samara Joy. She's really gone on to great things this year. It's incredible. And I read too that she had only discovered jazz in her senior year of high school as well, which I find fascinating.
Yes.
And I have a notation here that your students have won Downbeat Awards, the Sarah Vaughan competition, and the Ella Fitzgerald competition. You've also taught at Berklee School of Music, great school. And one of that I have a quote about from one of your students is, Professor Cole is tough, but in the best way. And that comment encapsulates your work ethic, which I think is a great compliment. To be, I think it's a wonderful thing to be valued as a performer or a singer or a musician. But when you wear as many different hats as you do, it's a wonderful thing to be valued as a teacher. And that's a great skill, separate from the other things that you were able to excel in your life. Teaching is not does not come easily, I think, for many people, and you seem to have got it in spades and have surrounded yourself with people who are great talent and also great teachers. So I applaud you all for that.
Thank you. That's actually a good segue, if you don't mind, to my new endeavor, which I wanted to discuss with people, which is called, it's a new website that I have just started called musicauditions.com. And it's, having a background with the university system, and also having done gigs, like I mentioned, the one in Tokyo where I was playing in a lounge. And I've also done I did a year on a cruise ship. And then I did a stint with the military. I mean, these are not the jobs. When you go to music college, you don't think like, oh, I'm going to go do a gig in a hotel, or I'm going to be in the military. But these are the jobs that have given me the most experience in my life, and enabled me to become, a seasoned performer. So by performing every night, because we just don't have those opportunities in, New York anymore to play every night of the week, especially if you're a front person. So the idea is to connect early and mid-career musicians with those types of jobs, theme parks and cruise ships and the military, and also, other types of jobs, so that they can gain experience and also gain a financial foothold and not struggle, so that they can, plan their lives and be more in control of their destinies and be able to stick with the music longer. And these are not the glamorous jobs that people dream of when they're young and going into music, but they're the jobs that give you experience and a little bit of, a little step ahead in your finances, which is, of course, a big struggle for everyone, especially for artists. So I'm really excited about launching that, jazzauditions.com. And people will apply to the site and we'll interview them. And then as people are hiring, they'll be able to see their profiles and invite them for interviews and for auditions. So it's very exciting.
And this will be national, right?
International.
That's incredible. Wow.
The internet has no borders. So yeah.
This is fantastic. I don't know where you get the energy to do all this, quite frankly. I'm impressed.
Wow. Well, I just try to do the things that I'm interested in, and then it's easy. And I really do. I mean, I'm really, lucky. I have this just amazing, blessed, charmed life. And I just have like a really good mix on my plate of performing, teaching, running the websites, and interacting with people that I want to help to build up. And helping people is one of the things that gives me the most pleasure in life. And even when I'm performing, that's sort of, helping people too, helping them connect with their emotions, or to enjoy a song, or even just to enjoy a pleasurable night out with substance, So these are all sort of in line with my life's mission, which is to help people to connect with themselves and each other, to bring more love into the world, and to strengthen our damn democracy. So that's where I'm going with all this. So I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to do the things I do. And I love, actually, my mother's an entrepreneur and has been helping small business people for years. So I feel like my father's a musician. He's a pianist and singer, just like I am. And my mother's an entrepreneur. So I think all these things kind of come natural to me. So I'm really just a product of my family.
Well, I greatly admire you and applaud all these efforts. And I will do everything I can to get the word out, because these are just fantastic avenues that are going to help the next generation of musicians as they come up. And big applause to you. Oh, I'm happy to say that we have two CDs of yours are available through Hoopla. We have the database Hoopla at the library. Dazzling Blue came out in 2016. That is available to stream. And then we also have A Kiss in the Dark from 2014 available to stream. Okay. And that was a fun one to listen to as well. You've got a really incredible the personnel on that with the guitar and the sax, and it just is a joy to listen to. So I very much enjoyed it. So both of those are available through Hoopla here at the library, and we have the Harold Mayburn Afro Blue CD for you to check out as well. I wish I could get Beautiful Friendship, but it doesn't look like it's a CD that I'm able to get. So I'm going to keep trying though, because I think that would be a nice one for our collection.
Great. Yeah.
So you have some upcoming gigs in the area. Would you like to tell us about what's coming up in September?
Sure. Yeah. This Saturday, September 10th, I'll be singing at the Fort Greene Jazz Festival, Fort Greene Park, from 3 to 5. And then on the 21st, I'll be at Grant's Tomb. That's an outdoor music concert, also free. Both of these are free. That's from 6 to 8 p.m. on September 21st. And then on September 8th, I'll be playing at Pangea, which is a wonderful club in the East Village. That's at 7 o'clock. That's a ticketed event. And October 1st, I'm going to be at a new club in Mount Kisco called Jazz on Main. And then November 6th, I will be at Birdland with my show. Amazingly, I wrote this show and performed it before I knew I was moving to Manhattan, but I was living in the suburbs in Westchester. But it's called Great Songs of a Great City, Songs of New York. That's a paraphrase. I came up with something wittier, but I can't remember it right now. But now I live here. I'm living down in the village, and it's just so wonderful. I'm in the West Beth Artist Housing after 18 years on the waiting list, sending in my tax returns every year and certifying myself as an artist. And it's just so wonderful to be here. It's such an amazing neighborhood, and the river's right there. It's so inspiring, and I have all this whole building is full of my neighbors who are artists, and just I can walk to the Blue Note and Smalls. It's just amazing, really inspiring to be here. So yeah,
there's so many great jazz clubs, and luckily Jazz Forum actually opened up in Tarrytown, not far from Ossining there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice. And the Marines is in Nyack, so we have some on this side of the river as well as in Manhattan, thankfully.
Yeah.
So who are you performing with, a band at Birdland? Or is it just yourself?
TBD.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
But I'll be playing piano and singing. Yes.
Wonderful. On her tour dates are all listed on her website, which is alexiscole.com, and everything is listed there. And also, what's wonderful is there's a lot of your music is there also to listen to, and yeah, it's just been fantastic to go on this dive of your talent and your music. So I appreciate your sharing it with me, and I appreciate your taking the time tonight to speak with me. So thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful time here, and good luck on Saturday.
Thank you so much for this in-depth art interview, and it's really wonderful that you're doing this series. Thank you so much for your time.
It's very clear our love is here to stay, not for a year, but ever and a day. The radio and the telephone and the movies that we know may just be passing fancies, and in time may go. But oh my dear, our love is here to stay. Together we're